This video is part of a larger piano course that you can get online. Find out more at the end of this video. In this module, we're going to get into how to read notes in music in C position. So how to recognize middle C in C position, how to recognize the D, the E, the F, and the G in a real piece of music like we have here on the screen. There's a lot to explain when it comes to how to read music, and so this is probably one of the more important modules in this whole course. Every note we see on the staff, let's say on the treble clef or down here on the bass clef, corresponds to a particular note on the keyboard. For example, this note right here is an E higher than middle C. In other words, here's middle C, two notes up. That's this note, that's E. Whenever I see a note on that line, that is always an E. So for example, that's an E, that's an E, that's an E. I could even go all the way over here and put a note here. That is also an E. This E right here. As long as the note or the note head, that little circle, the little dot, is on that line, it's an E. There are other E's on the piano as well. So for example, down here, which we aren't going to get to today too much, but this is also an E down here, but it's the E that's over on this end, right there. So that would be these kinds of notes. These are all the E's down here, right? But we're not going to focus on that. We're not going to stick with the bass clef. We're going to stick with the treble clef, which again has to do with notes that are up here. The higher a note is, the higher it is on the piano. So for example, that note is much higher than E. That one's all the way over here, this F. The lower they are on the music, the lower they are on the piano. So this down here, if I go all the way here, it's all the way down on this end. Notes are written on lines and spaces on the grand staff, which is what this is. And they go stepwise, line note, space note, line note, space note. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that this note, for example, is a line note, a low line note. That one's down here. This is G. If I want to go one note up, I go to the space right above it. That's this note. That's an A. And then if I want to go just one note up, I go to this line. And it goes to this note. This is a C. Then the next note would be D, E, F, G, A, B, like that. So this is what it looks like when I go up from the low note here, one note at a time. In this case, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, to where that pink note is up there. Now notice the pattern. It goes line note, space note, line note, space note, line note, space note, line note, space note, line note, space note. That's the pattern. We call this a line note because the line is going right through the dot. We call this a space note because the dot is in between two lines. Now after we get past this note, notice that we've kind of run out of lines and spaces. And so we have to keep that pattern of line note, space note, line note, space note. So if we go a little higher than this, what we end up doing is we'll just draw a little line there. And that becomes our next note. That's called middle C right there. We've actually reached this note right here, middle C. Now, if you remember from a previous module, middle C is middle C because it's right in between the treble clef, which is, up here, and bass clef, which is where I wrote all these notes down here. So middle C is right in the middle. Once I get past middle C, I'm now kind of up here in the treble clef. So I'm going to rewrite this middle C in pink in the treble clef. So there's our middle C right here. Now I'm going to go up one note from there, and I'm on a space note. That's a D. Now I'm going to go up one note from there. That's an E. Now I'm going to go up one note from there. That's F. and then it just keeps going from there. G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and if I really want to go higher, G. So when we have notes written like this, one at a time, we call that stepping. These notes are stepping notes. They're going just one note to the note right next to it, to the note right next to it. We've got to kind of ignore the black keys for now, but one white key to the next letter note, to the next letter note, to the next letter note. That's called stepping. And this is very, very helpful because sometimes when we're not quite sure what the next note is, we can use this little trick with stepping to help us figure out what the next note is. So let's say, for example, that I know that this note right here is an A. And this is the A right here. And then I see that the next note is right here. So I know the stem looks like it's going down. We're going to ignore the direction of the stem, but notice that the little note head, the dot, went from a space up to the line right above it. Well, that means I went up a little bit, so I go right here. This is a B. Now let's say once I'm there, I see that the note goes here, and that the note head went up a little bit more. Well, then I know I just got to go up a little bit more, right? Let's say I keep on going all the way here. Well, I just keep going 1, 2, 3, like that. You can get pretty far reading music just by recognizing the steps, just by seeing whether it goes up or down. Now, in this module, you are not going to be required to learn all those notes from the very bottom of the bass clef to the very top of the treble clef. We're just going to focus on 5 notes. And these are the 5 notes in the right-hand C position, C, D, E, F, and G. So our first note is middle C in the right-hand C position. That's where your thumb should be. Our next note in C position is D, which is right here, next to C. Our next note is E, which is right here. Our next note is an F, which is right here. And our next note is a G, which would be right here. So these first 5 notes are C, D, E, F, G. So what I'm going to do right now is write the letters of each of these notes underneath them. This is C, this is D, where the note's right below that line. This is an E, where the note is right on that lowest line. This is an F, right in between the first 2 lines. It's a space note. And then here's a G, right on the second line up. So I'm going to write a note all the way over here. Can you guess what that pink note would be? Is it a C, D, E, F, or G? It's an F, right? It's an F because it's on the same space. Let's try a different one. Let's say I put a note right here. Can you guess what that note is? Is it C, D, E, F, or G? If you go here, you notice it's in the same spot as this note. It's right underneath the bottom line. Because both those notes are right underneath the bottom line, they are both this note, this D right here. Let's try another one. What about this note? The one with the little line through it. It's a C, right? It's middle C. So whenever you see a note like that with a little line through it like that in exactly that spot, you know that that's a middle C. Do you want to learn how to play the piano but you're not quite sure where to begin? You can get my online course that's for very basic beginner piano students. You'll start out at the beginning by figuring out how to sit at a piano and what finger numbers are, and by the end of the course, you'll be able to play over 100 songs. The course also has self-assessment quizzes so that you can see if you're understanding what it is that you're learning in the video content. I'm offering it at a very affordable price. You can check it out at the link in the description below.